Literary Detectives is a series of television programmes about famous women writers. The first programme on Jane Austen will show clothes and customs, the food eaten by Jane at the places she visited, and the alternative medicine of the Georgian period used by the Austens. At Chawton House, food historian Esther Davies and writer and researcher Gwynneth Ashby, the presenters of Literary Detectives, meet Susie Granfield, PRO of Chawton House Library.
Well, here we are in the Oak Room. In Jane's time it was called the Ladies' Withdrawing Room, and in the Victorian period this rather heavy panelling was put on. So prior to that it would have been painted. It was much lighter, and obviously it was a much prettier room. Well, apparently she liked the view from this window, which shows the parkland, and she modelled the parkland of Donwell Abbey in Emma on this actual view.
It's a superb view, isn't it? Fantastic. With the ha-ha and the sheep in the distance.
Yes, and the wilderness up to the left there.
Yeah.
Gwynneth, I see you're sitting in the alcove.
It's interesting looking down the long drive.
Jane, you know, used to love sitting in the alcove here and watching people go up and down the drive, and also the carriages going along the Gosport Road at the end.
And this is the church, isn't it, where Mrs. Austen and Jane's sister Cassandra are buried, is that right?
Yes, they are, though, just to the left of the church, yes.
Yeah, and Jane, of course, was buried in Winchester Cathedral.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, here we are at Chawton House Library, and we've come to have a look at the cookbook that belonged to the Knight family. We have Jackie Granger with us, the head librarian of Chawton House Library.
Did other people give recipes to the book, or is it just the family only?
No, it would have been just as we do, collect recipes from friends and neighbours, and they would have been copied out maybe onto a piece of paper from a book that somebody had, and recipes were shared. This book is actually a fair copy that was made for Thomas Knight's sister, and there's actually an inscription at the front of the book, so you can actually see the Thomas Knight's writing. And this book, I bought it from Chawton and gave it to my sister, Mrs. J. Knight, on whose death it was returned. And they're the initials of Thomas Knight in 1793.
Well, as a food consultant, I'm absolutely fascinated by this cookbook, and particularly I'd love to make the caraway seed cake and also the pea soup. That's of great interest to me because we're still making those today, aren't we? And I'm just going to give you a couple of spoonfuls for you to try, see what you think.
Lovely, thank you.
You're welcome.
Right.
What do you think?
Delicious.
And of course the Austens did make this type of soup in their cottage, but they would have used fresh ingredients from their own cottage garden. You know, Jane liked to call herself an experimental cook, and quite often she was in the bakehouse, not only baking bread, but she liked to make different types of wine. Now, spruce wine is made from the bud and the needles of the spruce tree, boiled together with a little bit of water, and they added some molasses and yeast and sometimes hops, because as you know in Chawton
they grew a lot of hops.
Absolutely.
Right, locally.
And these were boiled together and fermented, and it produced a lovely spruce wine. Would you like to try some, Gwynneth, that I've made? Absolutely. Try some, don't be scared.
It's absolutely foul.
Well, it didn't stop Mr. Knightley from serving some to his guests. He certainly brewed some.
Let me try the other one.
Oh, go on then.
I prefer that one. This is a blackcurrant.
That's the blackcurrant, that's right.
That is delicious. Absolutely.
I'm glad you approve, Gwynneth.
Leeches were used a great deal as alternative medicine, and Mrs. Austen suffered from dreadful headaches, and so she used to put them on her forehead. In fact, Jane, in one of her letters, actually says that the great house sent a ham, and then just as an afterthought, 4 leeches. These leeches are in water, but quite often before they used the leeches, for instance, before she'd put them on her head, they'd put them for, say, a couple of hours into a dry container, and that is supposed to make them more irritable, although these seem fairly lively.
What a magnificent dining room, Gwynneth.
And look at this dining table. I can just imagine the Austens with their friends in the evening having dinner, sitting round it by candlelight. I mean, I've got a very small appetite, but they used to have 5 and more courses. And then they had supper.
And of course, don't forget Mr. Woodhouse. He absolutely loved his thin gruel nightcap. He used to impress on everybody.
Yeah.
It really was too much.
Thin gruel, yes.